Welcome to the ReaderHouse Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm your host, Corey Graham. Join us here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where the independent new authors come first. There's a new audiobook out by author Dale Lisi. It's titled Good and Evil, The Price of Life. And that's what we're going to be talking about right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Dale is with me. Dale, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
Absolutely, Dale. Can you tell me all about Good and Evil, The Price of Life? What do readers and audiobook listeners find here?
It starts out, I lost my arm in a boating accident in 1992, and what prompted me to write the book, and it sort of morphed into a lot of stuff. It took me about 25 years to probably write the book. I've done a lot of other things, and this was something I did on the side. It deals with pretty much every aspect in life from my life, and I guess people can relate to it because I think we all have similar problems and things. When I was young, before 92, when I was a teenager, I had some drug issues, and I'd kind of overcome all of that stuff, and then I lost my arm, and I had to deal with that and just various things here and there from there on out, and got reintroduced to religion, I guess you could say, because of the life-threatening experience I had when I lost my arm. And the book deals with that day-to-day life, dealing with problems we all have, and religion as well.
Dale, what made you decide to write your story and publish it for the world?
In the beginning, honestly, it was probably financial. I've got some great stories to tell. I've done some pretty stupid stuff growing up. I was in a bind where I needed to support myself. I'd been a roofer for a long time and come to the conclusion that I still needed to support myself with one arm, and I could write a little bit, kind of a hobby, and went from there with that. And as I say, some of the dumb things I did when I was younger, I put in there. Interesting stories, I guess. I don't exactly know how to describe them. Had hard drug use and did a lot of dumb things doing that. But primarily, the original reason to do it was financial. Now I'm doing pretty well. I was actually on a TV show for a while, Wicked Tuna, Outer Banks, and I've got a successful charter business. So now it's more just to kind of help people with their problems.
Did you have a specific readership that you were writing for?
No, really pretty much. I mean, I think just about everybody can relate to this. When you break everything down, everybody is has to deal with the animal that they are, as well as, the different aspects of your existence. And we've all got to support ourselves and deal with everything that comes along with being human.
When it comes to publishing and writing books and everything, Dale, are you new to all this? Was this your first one?
Yes, it was. It's my first and probably only. I feel almost obligated to have, to have written it. One of the main experiences in the book is as I was struggling with the reality of having one arm, which was not an easy thing to deal with. I was, the prime of my life. I was 22 years old. Everything I'd overcome, a lot of stuff in life, and things were really, really looking good for me. And then that kind of shot me down, and it was really a lot to deal with. And I felt like finding God and getting a miracle was really the only thing that was going to work for me. And I did some pretty crazy stuff trying to do that. I actually drove my boat over 200 miles out into the Atlantic Ocean looking for a miracle by myself. And things didn't go exactly as I'd planned. And when I got out there, you start to realize, well, do you even really believe in God when it gets right down to it? And that was back in the late 90s, and I did that twice. And a couple of other adventures were just, I went out into the desert for a while, and I went into the mountains for a few days, and pretty interesting stuff. I think people will enjoy it. It's definitely an original book. I don't think that anybody's read anything like this before, so it's got some, originality to it.
How long did it take once you sat down, started writing this, clear up until it got published?
I was writing this book for 20, 25 years. I worked on it off and on to make things, just kind of make sense of everything and put it down to where it was legible, to where people could understand what I was trying to say.
Well, I think this is a great book. I think so many people are going to love it. Again, it's titled Good and Evil, The Price of Life. This is written by Dale Lisi, and it's published by the Audiobook Network, so pick it up everywhere where you'd normally go to get your audiobooks, like Audible, iTunes, or Amazon. Dale, it was great having you on the show and learning about your life and about this book. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
Readers are encouraged to reflect on their lives in the new book by Murry Corrington. It's titled The Wonders of Poetry, and we're going to talk all about it here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Murry is with me. Murry, welcome to the show. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Can you tell me all about what readers will find in Wonders of Poetry?
Well, the name of the title is Wonders of Poetry because what people read in poetry is sometimes different per individual, and that's really what this book is.
And what was the inspiration to write it and have this published?
Well, pretty much things that I ran into in my life, situations I ran into in my life, or visuals I had seen by looking outside my window, or that inspired me to write.
And was this poetry that was written all together in a short period of time, or was this poetry that you wrote over time?
Oh, no, Corey. This happened over several years. In fact, when I first started writing, because I'm 74 years old, I'm not real techie. So I had just written everything and put it in a 3-ring notebook and just kind of kept it over all of these mega years that I've been writing. And eventually I just typed it all up and put it into an old computer. And that's basically how this started to be what it is.
What sort of readers do you think would really like it?
Well, poetry is, I want to say, I thought it to be a limited resource, but I'm finding out that it's not. So I would guess those that life situations are involved in this, so anyone with natural life situations would find this book interesting.
When it comes to writing and being published and everything, Murry, are you new to this, or have you done this kind of thing previously?
No, I've never done this before. In fact, like I said, I just gathered them all up one day and said to my husband, I'm going to try to publish these, and it happened. So this is very new, and this is my first book.
Congratulations. Murry, once you had all those poems gathered up and you actually started putting this book together, was that a long process clear through when it got published?
Not really, because first of all, I had them on my old computer and they were all there, and it was a matter of choosing which ones I wanted and where I wanted them. The time process, once I had said to my husband, I'm going to try publishing these, it might have taken me a couple months to get all of these organized. Remember, I wrote these way back in the 80s and 70s and 80s. I mean, one here, one there, one here, one there. So when I gathered them all up, it only took me a couple of months to lay them all out and find the direction that I wanted them to go in.
And do you think you'll have another book, maybe of those poems that you still have that you didn't include in this?
I do have some that I didn't include in this one. I have 40 in this one, and I do have some. And when a subject comes up, then that's what I write about, like My Greatest Gift, which is about mothers, things like that. So, I mean, when the mood strikes me, sometimes I just write, and sometimes it goes very, very quickly, and sometimes it takes a few weeks to get it together, to have my thoughts down correctly.
Now, being your first book, I'm sure it was quite a moment for you when the first one came in. You actually got to hold Wonders of Poetry for the first time, Murry. What was that like?
Oh, Corey, that feeling, like right now, I mean, it all becomes a dream until you're actually holding it into your hands. And I had so many emotions going on, like my head had so many feelings going on, and my stomach had so many different emotions going on, and my legs were shaking, my hands were shaking, and I still was trying to believe that this really was happening.
Now that you are a published author, Murry, to you, what's the most rewarding aspect of that?
The accomplishment itself. I mean, we always doubt ourselves in some of the things we try to do and stuff like that. And because it was all so new, I never thought it would be happening. But when it did, the confidence it gave me and that mammoth accomplishment, which I still feel when I talk about it. That was my greatest gift.
Well, I think so many readers are going to get so much out of this poetry. Again, the title of the book is Wonders of Poetry. It's written by Murry Corrington and published by Newman Springs Publishing. So you can find it at Amazon or Barnes & Noble, iTunes, traditional brick-and-mortar stores, everywhere where you normally go for your books. Murry, thank you again for joining me tonight and telling me all about your poetry. I had a really nice time.
Well, thank you very much, Corey, and I enjoyed this.
Author J. Stephen Murry takes a scholarly look at some important psalms in his new book, Lyrics by Adonai, Maskil Psalms from a Shepherd King. We're going to talk all about this book here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Got Stephen sitting here with me. Stephen, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being on the show with me tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm curious to learn about Lyrics by Adonai. Can you tell me what readers will find?
Well, sure. This is a study of some of the Maskil Psalms. The Maskil Psalms are a specific set of psalms that are set aside. There are several of the psalms that have headings, and the headings will tell you what type of psalm they are. And Maskil is a specific set of psalms that are set aside. There's 13 of them. The word Maskil means contemplation, so it means that psalms that you're supposed to think about.
And where did the idea for this come from? What sparked the inspiration?
Well, it started out in the Sunday school class. We were studying the life of David and the Psalms, and so it was just pull these particular Psalms out and put them in chronological order, and so that way we could look at the Psalms through the eyes of the psalmist. As the life events of David were unfolding and the Psalms that were written at that time, that way we get a deeper understanding of them.
Stephen, was there a specific readership that you were writing for?
Well, I can tell you this book, the way it's laid out, is designed for Christians. It's also designed for biblical scholars, and it's designed for just every ordinary people who would like to live a better life. Because part of my own personal background, I have a master's degree in counseling, and I have a psychological view from this, as well as a scholarly biblical view from it.
A book like this, with all the research involved, I would think it would take you a long time to put together and write and everything. Is that the case?
Yes, it took about 10 years to write this book. It wasn't so much, it didn't take that long to write it, but there was a lot of research involved. And plus, most of writing is rewriting. And sometimes you just have to set it aside and let it sit a while, and then go back and start rewriting again.
Stephen, is this your first time in the arena of writing and publishing, or are you familiar with this already?
No, this is my first time.
Congratulations. That day when your first copy came in must have been quite a day for you. What was it like to hold your book for the first time, Stephen?
Oh, well, it was pretty good. Now, I keep telling myself, trying to keep it all in perspective, but it was very exciting. It took so long to write it that it was like, it's finally here.
And that publishing process can surely be a lot of work. What did you find the most challenging part about that?
Well, I can tell you, a lot of the writing it had to be rewritten. Just the nuts and bolts of making it succinct and still hopefully entertaining.
And now that you are a published author, Stephen, to you, what's the most rewarding aspect of that?
Well, I would say probably the most rewarding aspect of that is just being able to speak God's word. There are some that are given to preaching, some that are given to teaching, and this is my gift that I've been given to be able to write and to proclaim God's word through writing.
Have you given thought to maybe doing a follow-up to this book or some other kind of book in the future?
Yes, I have another one in the works. It is also on the Psalms. It's on other selected Psalms, but it's more of one that's geared towards parenting and especially with teenagers, and it will be selected Psalms and what we can glean from them as well.
During the time you were writing Lyrics by Adonai, Stephen, did you ever encounter writer's block, anything like that?
Well, not so much writer's block, but I would have to whenever I cite a book, I want to read the book in its entirety and make sure that what I'm citing is what that author wanted to portray or a point about what that author had to say. And that takes reading it in its entirety. So when a book is cited, not necessarily for a quote, but when it's cited in the text of the book, it's, sometimes I have to stop and read the entirety of the book.
Well, I know a lot of readers will definitely be blessed by this book. Again, the title is Lyrics by Adonai, Maskil Psalms from a Shepherd King. It's written by J. Stephen Murry, published by Christian Faith Publishing. So pick it up on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, on iTunes, or also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Stephen, thank you again for coming on the show. I had a really great time chatting tonight.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate that.
Author Rhonda Castanon's new book is the story of resilience through life's challenges. The title is Journey Derailed. Is your hope for healing tied to a diagnosis, an expected outcome, a cure, or to Christ? And we're going to find out more about this book. Rhonda is here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Rhonda, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you being with me tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to be here and to talk about my book.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it as well. Rhonda, can you tell me all about it? What can readers expect in Journey Derailed?
Oh, well, I mean, it's a story about how unforeseen 24/7 chronic pain just kind of crashed unannounced into my life and literally made me feel like it blew up my entire life plan, my entire legal career. And what it taught me, though, about how many lies and false expectations I believed about how and when Christ would heal me, how he would help me fix something that I couldn't figure out how to fix. And so I go through, obviously a story of all the different things that I lost. I don't, talk, I guess, as much as you want me to.
Well, what kinds of readers do you think would really get the most out of Journey Derailed?
Well, yeah. I mean, any person who's ever felt that way, like you've just lost everything. What just happened to my life? Why does it seem like my prayers aren't being answered? Dealing with your expectations. You really do have to confront what you actually believe. Do you believe what the Bible says about how he can meet you in the unexpected and impossible situations of your life and all of that kind of stuff? So, yeah, anyone who's basically felt like they don't know what happened to their life, they don't know how to keep holding on, they're starting to feel hopeless, helpless. It's very unsettling, I guess, to say the least, to feel like everything that you thought, things were going fine for me. I had a great legal career. It was building. I had just had the opportunity, a golden opportunity, just like one of those incredible things that you just don't think happened to you for my legal career. And we're literally working it out. I was going to be taking over another practitioner's practice, when she was supposed to be retiring. It would have just been a huge boon for me and a catapult to my career. And she was very well known. We had already kind of had a working relationship, and I all of a sudden started having these headaches and severe pain, and I lost it all. I couldn't keep practicing. I ended up having to have a cervical fusion. I was in my early 30s. I had always been physically active. There was no trauma, no sickness, no accident, no nothing that pointed to me all of a sudden having this horrible thing come over my life. And it upended my marriage. And I stayed married, but it just uproots everything.
Yeah.
So I ended up having to leave my home. We moved to New County. I left my career. I had no idea if I was ever going to go back, and I never have. It's been 20 years now. I was never able to go back. But Christ was rebuilding and kind of repurposing my life, and he was showing me all of the things that I value. He took the things that I valued and exchanged it for what I actually needed so that I could have what he's given me now. I never expected any of this kind of stuff, writing books and starting to speak and share what he did and to reach out to others, when they're in that hopeless spot and not sure where to turn. Or
when it comes to writing, being published and everything, Rhonda, have you done this kind of thing before?
Well, Journey Derailed was my first book, and as I was writing that book, I got another opportunity to ghostwrite for a woman to tell her memoirs, and I ended up writing a chapter in a book called Broken Chapters, 21 Testimonies of How God Rewrites Our Life Stories, and there was literally 21 authors, and we were all just sharing, these situations in our life, and it covers almost every topic. And then my husband and I just wrote a book together. It's been amazing. I never thought I'd really do anything like this. None of this stuff was on my radar. I was busy being a lawyer and doing all of the lawyerly things and, building my practice. And
I think a lot of readers are definitely going to be moved by this book. Again, the title is Journey Derailed. Is your hope for healing tied to a diagnosis, an expected outcome, a cure, or to Christ? This is written by Rhonda Castanon and published by Christian Faith Publishing, so go out and get it anywhere, like on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Rhonda, it's been great talking with you tonight. Thanks so much for being here with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Occupational Studies. It's the new book by Jeff Namian, and it's a reflection on his career and how it's shaped him. And I get to find out all about this book. The author, Jeff, is with me now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Jeff, thank you for being here with me.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Can you tell me all about occupational studies and what readers can find?
It really chronicles 40 years I worked in higher education at a variety of institutions, ranging from community colleges up to world-renowned conservatories. And it's sort of a peek behind the curtain of how different institutions run, what their priorities are and aren't, and sort of a look at some of the things a concerned parent might want to consider the next time they commit to a $200,000 student loan. In a nutshell.
What kinds of readers were you writing for here? Was it primarily those parents?
No, I was taking the experiences that I had, and it has a very comedic effect, so it really anyone could read it and get a chuckle out of it. But I thought it was important for student applicants and parents alike sort of to know that the Department of Ed has a phrase called the ability to benefit. And basically what it does is it protects people from investing money in a career that may not be lucrative enough to even pay back or be worth what they're paying into it. It just may be a mismatch. Maybe the applicant is being misguided. And that policy it governs a lot of higher ed, and it is very frequently ignored or abused. And I did want the right people to sort of get that message that all is not what it seems in a catalog or a brochure or a web page. You really have to kind of research a little bit more into what the outcomes of the school is as opposed to the goodies that they'll present at the front end of it.
Jeff, when it comes to being published and writing books and everything, have you done this kind of thing before, or are you new to it?
I've written all my life just for personal enjoyment and things. And the good part about working in higher ed is you retire early. The salary is not great, but the benefits that come after and the pension are. So usually you check out at about 59 and a half, and most people are very ready to check out at the counter at that point. So once that happened, I started a website and I just started blogging every day and just to get myself in the habit of writing. And then I've written a few full-length manuscripts, and some of them are out, some of them are not quite yet. But it's enjoyment, and I enjoy getting things out, finding a language. It's been a great experience.
And once you sat down, got started on occupational studies, Jeff, how long of a process was this for you, clear up until it was published?
Some of the stories were written several years ago. Just if there was an incident that happened at one of the schools that I worked at 25 or 30 years ago, I would jot notes on that just because of the absurdity of the situation and to capture it at the moment, because if you didn't, it would lose its edge. So a lot of it was written sort of as I was going through my career, and then it was the putting together and the weaving it to make it one cohesive thought that I really worked on in the past couple of years.
There's nothing like that finished product. What was it like for you, Jeff, whenever you got that first copy of Occupational Studies in and you finally got to hold this thing with your name on the cover?
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. I hate to say dream come true, but yeah, just to see that I had something to say and then to actually talk to people that have read it. And that, it completes the cycle. And to know that someone has actually read it and was either entertained by it, informed by it, whatever their reaction was, that's enormous because you don't know what audience is out there. So, yeah, it's very exciting.
I think readers are going to love this. Again, the title is Occupational Studies, written by Jeff Namian, published by Newman Springs Publishing, so you can get it anywhere. Go on over to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes or traditional brick-and-mortar stores. You'll be able to pick it up. Jeff, I really appreciate you coming on the show and telling me all about this today. I had a good time talking with you.
Oh, me too. Thank you very much for having me.
The new novel by Chris Reynolds is about transformation in the midst of hopelessness. The title is Island of Redemption, and I get to find out all about this. Chris is with me now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Chris, welcome. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you for having me.
Oh, pleasure's all mine. I'm really curious about Island of Redemption. Can you tell me what you've written about?
So I guess the elevator pitch would be The Shack meets Castaway with the Life of Pi twist. So if you know any of those books, they all are very, have their very unique properties. So the story is really about a middle-aged guy, middle class. He goes on a fishing trip in Barbados. His buddy fails to show. So he goes out fishing, and while he's out fishing, a storm brews. He gets hit by lightning on the boat, which disables it. He drifts for 6 weeks in the Atlantic and finally is able to maneuver onto an island, which he learns is deserted. So he's there all alone for 5 years on this island. And during the 5 years, it's survival, but really it's within the loneliness. He, reviews all of his life and starts to realize a lot of the stuff he thought was important, like arguing politics or caring whatever other people thought of him, really had no real bearing on life. He had not reached a point of despair, but after 5 years of being alone, kind of like Wilson and Castaway, he started talking to himself. And then a big hurricane hits the island, and this is where the big change in the story takes place. After the hurricane passes, it opens up part of the island that was inaccessible before. And what he finds is a waterfall and a grotto with a freshwater lake, which of course puts all his water issues behind him. But more importantly is there's a young, beautiful girl there. Now, he's not sure if she's real or imaginary, but after being alone for 5 years, he really doesn't care. And if you remember in the book Life of Pi, at the end, the reader is left with two options. Did he really have these fantastical stories that happened in the book, or was it more very dark and sinister? And they leave it for the reader to decide. So this girl, she leaves every evening and made it clear, don't follow me. She returns every morning, and she starts becoming his guru or his spiritual guide, whatever you want. They start talking about things in general. She then introduces the subject of God, not with any specific religious denomination, and says, well, if you were to see the world through God's eyes, and she starts focusing that way, and little by little, he starts to realize everything is not just about him, that there's others. He's forced to examine how he dealt with his children, how he dealt with his wife, what was important, what was not important, what was the real value of wealth and money if you didn't do something good with it. All through this, he's being transformed. After 3 years, she basically says to him one day, so now understand, he's been on this island for 8 years, says, okay, you're ready to fulfill God's destiny. And the very next day, treasure hunters come to the island looking for some lost treasure. She vanishes. She's never to be seen again. And again, you're left with was she ever real? Was she not? And you really won't know until you get to the last paragraph of the book, which will give you a clue that's hard to ignore. I'll let the reader find that. Remembering the things that she had told him over the 3 years, little clues here and there, he helps these treasure hunters find an enormous treasure, something out of the 1700s. Well, Mark Lambert, that's the main character, he becomes one of the richest men in the world. And the last third of the book is, what does he do with his wealth? Does he fantasize and participate in all the things you learned early on in the book that he, would like to do? Or does he, conversely, he's had comments in the book like there was a hurricane in Haiti or there was an earthquake in Haiti, and really, do I give a damn what happens in Haiti? So that's the genesis of the story.
It's called Island of Redemption, written by Chris Reynolds, published by Covenant Books. So Go find it anywhere, like on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes, and also down the street at your local bookshop. I really appreciate you coming on the show tonight, Chris. Thanks again for joining me.
Well, thank you for letting me be on your show. I appreciate it.
Nutmeg's Hidden Treasure. It's the new book written by Candace Byrge, and it's a parable for young readers. We're going to talk all about it now. Candace is here with me at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Candace, welcome. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is wonderful.
It is wonderful. It's wonderful you got this book out, Nutmeg's Hidden Treasure. Can you tell me all about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So this book, it's a story for kids roughly from ages 4 to 11, and it's about a bunny named Nutmeg that goes on an adventure, which leads to a discovery of an unexpected treasure. And the story is based off of Jesus's parable of the hidden treasure. And for those listening, a parable is best summed up as a simple story to help illustrate a lesson or a message. And Jesus's parable is found in Matthew 13:44, where he says, "The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his great joy went and sold all he had and bought that field." And kids will follow along Nutmeg's journey and discover this treasure that mirrors this parable that's fun and engaging for them. And it also will help parents or caretakers with this message with teaching the little kids.
Oh, what a great message in this book. Candace, how did the inspiration for this come about?
Well, but inspiration really, I have 3 that come to mind in the creation of this book. 1 is my love for Jesus. 2 is being around kids all the time. I have 3 of my own and constantly, doing things with these little guys. And then the 3rd is we do have a pet bunny named Nutmeg. So she really came about from our pet.
I love it. And when it comes to writing, publishing, and all of that, Candace, are you new to it, or have you done this kind of thing before?
So this is my first published book. I'm very new to it. I never truly considered myself to be a writer at heart. I always loved to draw and color pictures and illustrate, but never fancied myself with the writing skill. And I was working on a paint by number picture, like creating the picture itself to be sold at the local farmer's market. And I brought my sketches and my idea to my husband, Paul. And he thought the pictures just itself told a story. And he said, "You should really write a book." And I immediately tried to palm that off on him. I said, "You write the story and I'll illustrate it." Well, he shot that down right away. So I thought, okay, I'll give the writing a try. And I sat down and it was very natural and fluid and just came to me. So the writing process for me was very quick and fast. And it only took me a couple days to write the story. And as far as illustrating it, it took me a long time to get the pictures the way I wanted them done. But it all worked out.
Yeah, the illustrations turned out beautifully. I really like them. Well done.
Thank you.
So you got to tell me what was going through your mind, what you were feeling whenever you finally got your first copy of this in and you got to hold your book for the first time. What was that like for you, Candace?
It was definitely a cool feeling, but the main emotion that would come through was just thankfulness. I was just thankful, and I still have that mindset. I'm thankful for this fun opportunity to do.
Or what are the chances we're going to see more books from you in the future?
So I do have a second one in the process. I'm not sure when I'll move forward with it, but I do have one in the works.
Fantastic. I think readers will love this book. What a great message there is in it. Again, the title is Nutmeg's Hidden Treasure. It's written by Candace Byrge and published by Christian Faith Publishing, so go on over to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes or down the street at your local bookshop and you'll be able to pick it up. Candace, thank you again for coming on the show. I had a really nice time chatting tonight.
Wonderful. Thanks again for having me. Take care.
Author Michael Byron Smith has written a new book, and it's a true story of a family lost. The title is A Vagabond Life, a memoir of father hunger. And I get to find out all about this book. The author, Michael, is here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Michael, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, I really appreciate being with you.
Absolutely. I'm curious about A Vagabond Life. Can you tell me about it? What do readers find here?
Yes, Vagabond Life, the title comes from the fact that for two purposes. One is my father, who I had a hunger for, was a person that was never around for his family. And the reason he was a vagabond was he was a merchant marine. He traveled the 7 seas all over the world, but he didn't have much opportunity, or he didn't serve us as a father very well. He kept his money to himself, he drank his money, and left us back home in Missouri where we had to fend for ourselves. And then also, because we had to fend for ourselves, we moved around ourselves. We went from home to home. My mother was not educated. She didn't have a good job. She was a waitress most all the time. And we would live somewhere for 3 months or so, and then we'd have to move because of non-payment of rent or whatever. So we were vagabonds as a family. We went to many schools. I probably went to 35 schools.
Wow.
So the vagabond life part comes from just the constant moving. And the subtitle is A Memoir of Father Hunger, because I really wanted to be close to my father, and I really hungered for his company and for his mentoring, but he just never was there for any of us. So it's a story about a family who just struggles.
And what inspired you to write this story and publish it, Michael?
Well, I knew what life was like as a child, and I didn't want to live that way as a grown-up. So I had goals, and that's the key to getting out of something like that. I had a goal. I wanted to be a pilot. And being a pilot, being an Air Force pilot, you have to have a college degree. And so I had that goal to get out of it. And as I went through that process and became a pilot through studying, through getting a scholarship and going to ROTC, I became a pilot, responsible person. I had my own family. I raised 3 children who grew up just wonderfully. And at a certain point, I decided I'm going to make some notes about what I lived through as a child and what I lived through as an adult and as a father and a husband. And so I made some notes, and I wrote a book 10 years ago called The Power of Dadhood, because the power of having a father, a 2-family home where both parents contribute to raising their children, is such a much healthier atmosphere and helps the children move forward. And that was written about 10 years ago. And then I waited about 7 years. I didn't think about writing another book, but then I thought, you know what I want to do is I want to write a book that tells and explains what I lived through and as the reason of writing the book about helping dads. My first book was a mentoring book, how to face challenges of a father, what things to expect, a checklist of what makes a good father. These were all things that I put together because of the conflicts I saw between my childhood and my adulthood. So the story behind writing that book was A Vagabond Life. So it's the follow-up to the first book. The first book was a mentoring book. The second book is a story.
Who are you speaking to with A Vagabond Life? What sort of readers do you think would get the most out of it?
I had a story of a childhood that was not very good, and I'm not the only one. There are plenty of people that have hard childhoods. And when I'm talking to people, I'm talking to people that have had that themselves. Maybe they've had father hunger, or maybe they've had mother hunger. And I want to talk to them and say, I know what you're going through. I know what you went through. And I know that there's a way to get out of it. But there's also ways to get trapped into it. Sometimes these people, when they're raised in a certain atmosphere, they don't escape. They haven't had the support in their life they need. They haven't had the encouragement. And they grow up with a lack of self-confidence, which I did. I was not confident at all until I got maybe into my 30s. It took a while. And so I wrote it to those kind of people. And I also wrote it to let society know that it's very important to have a solid family. Any men out there, know that you're important. You don't have a baby and just let the mother raise it. You've got to be involved. You've got to be part of the whole process. So it goes along with just helping society, basically, because my book is really a social issue book in a way, and it's just a story that tells the social issue.
The title, again, is A Vagabond Life, a memoir of father hunger. It's written by Michael Byron Smith and published by Covenant Books. So get it at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes or down the street at your local bookshop. Michael, thanks again for coming on the show and tell me about your story and about this book. I had a nice time talking with you.
Well, it was really nice talking to you and all my listeners out there. Thank you again for listening.
Right now, here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, I'm joined by author Joan Latham. Joan, welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight.
You're welcome.
It's exciting. You just released a new book titled Lest One Be Left Behind. Joan, can you tell me all about what readers can expect here?
It's a book about a child with a disability who overcomes it and becomes friends. It's actually based on my life growing up as a child with disabilities and being teased and able to gain friendships.
Joan, what sorts of readers did you write this for?
Starting at elementary school, elementary through adult.
Joan, can you go back and think about what sparked the idea for this book? What made you say, hey, I need to sit down and write this story?
I actually was in a class at a school where we were wanting to write the book. The title of the book and everything just came to me like I said, for a personal, wanting to share my story with other people.
How long did it take you to write this and get it published?
It only took me a couple of weeks, less than, I guess, a week to write when I wrote it for my class, and it was published this past month.
Have you ever published before or written a book before?
No, I haven't. This is my first time.
Oh, congratulations. Joan, what was it like when this first copy came in and you got to hold Lest One Be Left Behind for the first time?
I got emotional when it came in to my possession and happy that I was able to share my story with others.
And now, Joan, it's official. You are a published author now. What's the most rewarding aspect of that for you?
Being able to share my story and help other children who may be going through the same thing to find hope. And also, again, having adults learn from it too. And finding their story or hope and having the children find their story. Help them find their story within them.
Joan, do you think you'll be writing more and publishing more ahead of you?
Yes, I actually have another children's book that I've written that I plan to publish.
Fantastic. Now, when you think about the publishing end of things, there's a lot involved in that. Joan, what did you find the most challenging part of the publishing process?
This was the first time, I guess, going through the steps, and I guess the most challenging was just trying to get my book out there to the publisher and make sure that they would like it and publish.
A big, important part of children's books is often the illustrations. Joan, was that a smooth process?
Yes, it was. That was one of the processes that went very well. And ironically, if you look at the illustrations that were in the book, my character has a shirt that has a butterfly on it, and that's my personal symbol through my own disability, the cerebral palsy. I didn't let them know that, so it's kind of interesting that it happened.
I'm sure writing and publishing for the first time was quite a learning experience for you. Joan, do you have any advice now that you could put out there for aspiring authors who are listening?
Don't give up, and your story can't be told, and find the right publisher that would go and publish your book and see that it's a good novel or book or whatever that he wants to be published. Just don't give up and be able to find your story.
Now, Joan, while you were writing Lest One Be Left Behind, or when you're working on the new one, do you ever encounter writer's block, anything like that?
Yes, I did. That's natural within writing. Everybody has that, wanting to. So I guess the first thing that was kind of hard is form the character around a story, or just one of the first things is to form your characters and then write the rest of the story.
Well, this book has a wonderful message. I encourage everyone listening to go seek it out. Again, the title is Lest One Be Left Behind. This is written by Joan Latham and published by Hawes & Jenkins Publishing, so get it at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes or also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Joan, thank you so much for coming on the show and telling me all about your work. I had a nice time talking with you tonight.
Thank you.
Right here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, I'm sitting with author Jerome Petty, who's written a striking new memoir. It's titled From Broken to Blessed, an attempt at suicide that ended with blessings beyond my dreams. We're going to talk all about this. Jerome, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you, sir.
Absolutely. I'm interested to learn all about From Broken to Blessed. Can you tell me what you've written about here?
Basically, it's a memoir pertaining to my life and the struggles that I went through in my youth, into my early adult life, and how God took me from all my struggles and depressions and led me to a life of blessings, stuff that I just couldn't imagine for myself.
Jerome, did you have a specific reading audience that you were writing for?
Mainly, it was to target people that were dealing with depression and just feeling hopeless. But I think a lot of people could get something from this book, just dealing with struggles of life, how it took me from my struggles and how God intervened and turned my life into blessings. So I think anybody could get something out of the story, but mainly it was to target people that were dealing with struggles and just feeling hopeless.
Well, Jerome, you're telling your story here. It's a personal thing. You're making yourself vulnerable here. So what was the inspiration to write this story and publish it?
Again, just to give people hope, those that were feeling like there was no way out. I mean, I was at a low point at one point, and I attempted suicide. When I got into a relationship with God, and God took me to the other side of all my dark problems, I wanted to reach back and help people that were in that same boat of struggle and show them that there was another side to all their problems and darkness. If they committed themselves to God, God would lift them up out of all those struggles and show them what waited on the other side for them.
Jerome, what does your writing background look like? Have you ever done anything like this before?
No. This is the first book I've ever wrote. I've never even thought of writing a book. But when I look back over my years, I'm 57 years old now, and when I went through my struggles and attempted suicide, I was maybe 27. So when I look back over this, I'm like, this is worth writing about and, hopefully helping somebody.
Is From Broken to Blessed a book that took you a long time to write?
No, I'll say it probably took me 2 years, and that's because I'm not a writer. Well, at least I didn't see myself as a writer. So when I first wrote a rough copy, it was really a hot mess. So I had to take my time and go over it again and again to kind of clean it up. But again, it took maybe 2 years for me to put it into words that would be helpful to people.
And then you submit that manuscript to your publisher and you start that publishing process. Jerome, what did you find the most challenging part of the publishing end of things?
I just didn't know it was going to take as much time, as far as hearing back from people. And it was just a lengthy process. I mean, they told me from the door it was going to take, I think, maybe 9 months. A lot of it, I just didn't know really what to expect. I mean, they were helpful, giving me guidance, but them reaching back out to me with material and asking me, do you like this? What do you want to fix? What do you want to change? But they were helpful, but it just took longer than I thought it would.
Well, Jerome, what were you thinking or feeling that day when you finally got this book in, the first physical copy of From Broken to Blessed, and you got to hold it? What was that like for you?
It was like a dream come true. This was my journey, my struggles, my hurts, my pains that I wanted to share with the world. And it was like, here it is in my hands now. And, now I just want to get it out, get some exposure to it, and hopefully it can help people. So it was a dream come true to hold it in my hands.
I know people everywhere are going to be blessed by this book. Again, the title is From Broken to Blessed, an attempt at suicide that ended with blessings beyond my dreams. It's written by Jerome Petty, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and available everywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Jerome, thank you again for coming on the show, telling me about your story, about this book. I had a nice time talking with you tonight.
I appreciate your time, sir.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. We hope to see you back here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.